said Harry. I'm looking for Justin Filch Flenchley. The Hufflepuff's worst fear had clearly been confirmed. They all looked fearfully at Ernie. What do you want with them? Said Ernie in a quavering voice. I wanted to tell him what really happened with the snake at the Dueling Club, said Harry. Ernie bit his white lips, and then, taking a deep breath, said, We were all there. We saw what happened. Then you noticed that after I spoke to it, the snake backed off, said Harry. All I saw, said Ernie stubbornly, though he was trembling as he spoke, was you speaking puzzle tongue and chasing the snake towards Justin. I didn't chase it at him, Harry said, his voice shaking with anger. I didn't even touch him. It was a very near miss, said Ernie. And in case you're getting ideas, he asked hastily, I might tell you that you can trace my family back to 9 generations of witches and warlocks, and my blood as pure as anyone's. So, I don't care what sort of blood you've got, said Harry fiercely. Why would I want to attack Murgle-borns? I've heard you hate those Murgles you live with, said Ernie swiftly. It's not possible to live with Dursleys and not hate them, said Harry. I'd like to see you try it. He turned on his heel and stormed out of the library, airing himself a reproving glare from Madame Prince, who was polishing the gilded cover of a large spell book. Harry blundered off the corridor, barely noticing where he was going. He was in such a fury. The result was that he walked into something very large and solid, which knocked him backward on the floor. Oh, hello, Hagrid, Harry said, looking up. Hagrid's face was entirely hidden by a woolly snow-covered balaclava, but it couldn't possibly be anyone else, as he filled most of the corridor in his moleskin overcoat. A dead rooster was hanging from one of his massive gloved hands. All right, Harry, he said, pulling off the balaclava so he could speak. Why aren't you in class? Cancelled, said Harry, getting up. What are you doing here? Hagrid held up the limp rooster. Second one killed this term, he explained. It's either foxes or a blood-sucking bugbear, and I need the headmaster's permission to put a charm around the handcuff. He peered more closely at Harry from under his thick snow-flecked eyebrows. Yeah, sure you're all right. You look all hot and buttered. Harry couldn't bring himself to repeat what Ernie and the rest of Hufflepuff had been saying about him. It's nothing, he said. I'd better get going, Hagrid. It's Transfigurations and I've got to pick up my books. He walked off, his mind still full of what Ernie had said about him. Justin's been waiting for something like this to happen ever since he last leaped to Potter. He was a Muggle-born. Harry stamped up the stairs and turned along another corridor, which was particularly dark. The torches had been extinguished by a strong, icy draft that was blowing through a loose window spacer. loose window spacer. He was halfway down the passage, then he tripped headlong over something lying on the floor. He turned to squint at what had fallen over and felt as though his stomach had dissolved. Justin Filch Flenchley was lying on the floor, rigid and cold. A look of shock frozen on his face, his eyes staring blankly at cold. A look of frozen on his face, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. And that wasn't all. Next to him was another figure, the strangest sight Harry had ever seen. It was nearly headless snake, no longer purely white and transparent, but black and smoky. Black and smoky. Floating immobile and horizontal, 6 inches off the floor. 6 inches off the floor. His head was just half off, and his face wore expressions of shock identical to Justin's. Harry got to his feet, his breathing fast and shallow. He heard doing a kind of turmoil against his ribs. He looked wildly up and down the desert corridor and saw a line of spiders circulating in fast as they could away from the bodies. The only sound were the muffled voices of teachers from the classes on the other side. He could run, and no one would ever know he had been there. But he couldn't just leave them lying there. He had to get help. Would not anyone believe he hadn't had anything to do with this? And he stood there, panicking. A door right next to him opened with a bang. Peeps, the porters, came shooting out. "Why is the potty wee Potter?" crackled Peeps, knocking Harry's glasses askew as he bounced past him. "What's Potter up to? Why Potter lurking?" Peeps stopped halfway through a mid-air somersault. Upside down, he spotted Justin, a nearly headless snake. He flipped the right way up, filled his lungs, and before Harry could stop him, screamed, "Attacked! Attacked! Another attack! No Myrtle or Goose is safe! Run for your lives! Attacked!" Crash, crash, crash. Door after door flew open along the corridor and people flooded out. For several long minutes there was a scene of such confusion that Justin was in danger, being squashed, and people kept standing a nearly headless snake. Harry found himself pinned against the wall as the teacher shouted for quiet. Professor McGonagall came running, followed by her own class, one of whom still had black and white striped hair. She used her wand to set off a loud bang, which restored silence and ordered everyone back into their class. No sooner had the scene cleared somewhat than Ernie and the Hopefuls arrived, panting on the scene. "Caught it in the act!" Ernie yelled, his face stark white, pointing the finger dramatically at Harry. That will do, Macmillan, said Professor McGonagall sharply. Peeves was bobbing overhead, now grinning widely, surveying scene. Peeves always loved cows. As the teachers bent over, just in a nearly headless snake, examining them, Peeves broke into song. "Oh, Potter, you rotter! Oh, what have you done? You're killing our students. You think it's a good fun." "That's enough, Peeps!" barked Professor McGonagall, and Peeps zoomed away backward with his tongue out at Harry. Justin was carried up to the hospital wing by Professor Flitwick and Professor Sinstra of the astronomy department. But nobody seemed to know what to do for nearly helpless Nick. Nearly in the end, Professor McGonagall conjured a large fan out of thin air, which she gave to Ernie with instruction to waft nearly helpless Nick up the stairs. That Ernie did, feigning Nick along the silent black hovercraft. This left Harry and Professor McGonagall alone together. "This way, Potter," she said. "Professor," said Harry at once, "I swear I didn't." "This is out of my hand, Potter," said Professor McGonagall curtly. They marched in silence around the corner, and she stopped before a large and extremely ugly stone gargoyle. "Lemon drop," she said. This was evidently a password, because the gargoyle sprang suddenly of life and hopped aside of the wall behind him, split in two. Even full of dread for what was coming, Harry couldn't fail to be amazed. Behind the wall was a spiral staircase that was moving smoothly upward like an escalator. As he and Professor McGonagall stepped onto it, Harry heard the wall thud close behind them. They rose upward in circles, higher and higher, until they lost, slightly dizzy. Harry saw a gleaming of oak door ahead, with a brass knocker in the shape of the griffin. He knew now where he was being taken. It must be where Dumbledore lived. Chapter 11. The Dwelling of is done.